Okay, this video is going to be an introduction to Section 1.4, another one of our basic geometric terms, which we have not officially talked about or defined, but you have certainly seen before. And I'm actually going to ask you to start by going ahead and drawing an angle on your paper. You're following along on your note sheet, and you need to take notes. Sometimes I will give you the option, but this time you need to take notes. You're going to be expected to show those tomorrow in class. I'm going to draw an angle on the right-hand side of my page. You can draw it any way you want. There are all different types of angles. We're going to go over those in just a moment. Right now, I'm going to draw an angle that looks like that. I'm going to put a few points on here. I'm going to use A, B, and C. And we can now define an angle as literally being a combination of two of another word that we already talked about. If we look at AB and if we look at AC, those are two rays. And what's special about those two rays is that they share an endpoint. So hopefully you're seeing that an angle is really just two rays that have a common endpoint, and we're going to call that the vertex point, another word that you've heard of. So our vertex in this case is A. Real quick, just to get a couple other definitions out of the way, we have what we call the interior and the exterior of the angle. So everything that I put in yellow is my interior. And then around it, any points, we can have an infinite number of other points around here would be considered in the exterior. We might throw those words out just so you're on the same page as us. Let's talk about naming an angle, because we do have actually three ways that we're going to name an angle. And just like naming a plane and naming a line, we got to be specific so we know what we're talking about. The first way is your safest way of naming an angle always works, and that's going to be with three letters, capital letters, points. And the important thing is that the vertex is in the middle when you're naming it. So, an example, with my angle that I have up there, I'm going to name that angle BAC. I'm literally walking around my angle, BAC. I could name it angle CAB. If I switch them, even if I have more points on there, if I add a point D right here, I don't need to use it. I only need three letters, one on each ray, and the vertex point in the middle. Second way I can name an angle is to use the vertex point only. This is very convenient. With the angle I've drawn up there, I can simply refer to it as angle A. The only thing you got to be careful of is that sometimes we have more than one angle coming off of the same vertex point. So for instance, I could have another ray coming off here, and then I would not know which angle A I'm talking about. I've got angle A and I've got angle A. So in that case, then I'm going to have to use my three letters. Okay. The third one is that sometimes we'll use numbers inside the angles. If I put a little 1 right here, I can refer to that with the number as my, I can refer to that as angle 1, and sometimes that's just more convenient than using the letters. So when we have a lot of angles we're talking about, we might use numbers to refer to them. Okay, let's practice with a little bit more complicated picture than just my angle BAC that we have up there. So we've got a picture on the right of what a surveyor is seeing. He recorded the angles formed by a transit at point A and three distant points, B, C, and D. And there are actually three angles in that picture. I want you to go ahead and try to name all three angles. Notice that we have a common vertex point A, so in this case, angle A is no good. We're going to have to use three letters. Go ahead and write it down. To check your work, I'm going to start with the angle on the left-hand side, and I'm going to trace it. I start at B, go to A, and go to C, and that's actually, I think, the same letters that I used before, angle BAC. Okay, you could have said for that one, Angle CAB would also be correct for the angle on the left. The angle on the right, I'm going to trace that, and I've got angle CAD. If you said angle DAC, that would be the same thing, but going backwards. And the third angle that we see in that picture, there's a third angle, is if you actually ignore ray AC and you look at the entire angle, you would see a larger angle, BAD or DAB if you switch that around. So those were the three angles, the blue, green, and red. One of each of those is what you should have had. Let's try a little bit harder example. How many angles in the diagram that we see now using the letters P, Q, R, and S? I know there are triangles. We're not looking at triangles right now. We are looking at angles. Try to name as many angles as you can. Go ahead and pause the video, write them down, then start the video again and check and see how you did. I'm going to go ahead and start on the left-hand side and try to work my way around here. I'm going to say I have angle P. I'm only going to use one letter because there's only one angle with the vertex point P. I'm going to go ahead and say on the other side I actually have the same thing, angle S. At the top, let's go ahead and look at the top. I've got an angle on the left here, which is angle PQR, if I'm tracing it, PQR. And then I've got the other side, angle RQS or SQR. Don't forget about the big one there. Before I move on, I'm going to get that one at the top that is all of that, this entire angle, PQS. Okay, again, I can switch those, angle SQP. And then I'm going to go down. I haven't done anything with point R as my vertex, so I've got point Q as my vertex so far. I've got point P and point S, both have one angle. But let's go down to vertex R. And again, we should see three angles right there. Okay, look closely, three angles. I've got the one on the left-hand side, angle PRQ, PRQ. On the right-hand side, I've got angle QRS. And there's one more. We've got 7 so far. We've got one more. You might have missed this one. When we have a straight line, we can consider that an angle. So looking at this, we do have an angle that goes all the way and includes both of the two angles I just named, and it's actually angle PRS. It's what we call a straight angle, and it really is a line, but we're talking about the angle, not the line. Remember, we name a line with two letters. We're talking about the angle that makes a line because we have a pair of opposite rays there. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is measuring angles. I'm sure you've seen a protractor before. We're going to go through real quick, just a refresher of how to use it and our 4 basic angle types if we're classifying angles. So classifying angles, we're thinking words like acute, right, obtuse, and straight. Let's go ahead and measure so that we're not just guessing here. Using a protractor, we're going to find the center point of the protractor. I've got this little arrow here. And then we're going to, I'm going to need to rotate it a little bit, line up the bottom line with one of the rays of my angle. So I'm going to line it up here with one of the rays of my angle. I've got the one going off down there. And now I'm going to go ahead and look at where the other ray intersects the protractor. So it's going right here. And there's always 2 numbers when you're looking at the protractor. Don't be confused. Okay, it looks like right before 30, it looks like we're at 28. We're 2 marks before 30. And it looks like we're at 152. And if we're looking at this angle, 28 degrees or 152 degrees, hopefully you're recognizing that that is definitely an acute angle. And we're going to go with the smaller one, 28 degrees. Okay, you don't have a protractor in front of you, or I'm assuming you don't, so I'm going to go ahead and put the protractor on each one of these. I want you to go ahead and see if you can read it and get the most accurate measurement you can. So I'm going to go ahead and put it right there, lining it up, and go ahead. I'm going to highlight. This is the one ray. The other ray is coming off right here. And if you follow that out, and I actually do a straight line, hopefully you're getting 90 degrees for that one. We do mark 90-degree angles with a little box in the corner, and 90-degree angles are known as right angles. Again, it doesn't matter. If I have a horizontal line, I like to use that for setting up my protractor. Okay, this time, because I'm starting with my 0 here, I'm going to be looking at the inside numbers. I'm starting with the 0, and I'm going all the way out to here. And we're going to go ahead and find that ray. And it looks like I'm just past 140. Looks like I'm at 142 maybe. That's my obtuse angle. And the last one is a straight line, but we're looking at the angle, not the line. And again, that's a 180-degree angle. If you look all the way starting at 0, goes all the way to 180 degrees. Don't really need to measure that one, but we can use our protractor for that as well. So that is maybe a new one. We're not used to seeing that or talking about that as an angle, but it is a straight angle. 4 types of angles. Last thing we're going to do is go ahead and flip your page over to the back side. I have a protractor here, and I want you to go ahead and figure out the measure of each angle. This time you're not adjusting your protractor because you can't move the protractor on there, so you might have to do a little bit of math to figure out the measure of the angle I'm talking about. I'll walk you through the first one, angle BOC. BOC, so I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at that ray going up there. Okay, maybe a little bit hard to see. It looks a little blurry on my screen. Look at the numbers that we're at here. So if you look at the numbers that we're at, it doesn't matter if you go on the outside or the inside as long as you pick the same numbers, either way you're going. So it looks like we're at 140 degrees on the outside. And it looks like we're at 105 on the outside right here. Right between 100 is right here and 110. And this one we said was 140. So if I'm looking for this angle right here and I don't adjust my protractor to be lined up with one of those rays, then I'm just going to take those two numbers. I know that angle is the difference between those 2 degrees where those rays are. So I can use my protractor and just say, hey, it's 140 minus 105, get the difference between those. Angle BOC is a 35-degree angle. Okay, if I'm going to classify that, hopefully you're going to agree with me that that's an acute angle. You've got 2 more to do. I'd like you to pause the video, try them, and then check your answers. Okay, hopefully you've got some guesses down or you feel confident in your answers. I'm going to go to angle COD. And I said that 105 is marked up here. If I'm looking down here, again, I'm following the outside numbers right now, between 10 and 20. It looks like I'm at 15 degrees there, so I'm at 15 degrees here, 105 there, and I'm finding the difference between those. 105 minus 15 is giving me a 90-degree angle. So that does appear to be a perfect right angle there, which we can mark with a 90-degree angle mark. And the last one there, angle BOD. Angle BOD. So I'm looking for BOD. And I'm actually noticing that that is the combination of the 2 that I already highlighted. So I've got 2 options here. I can go with my 140 and my 15. Do a simple subtraction here. Giving me 125 degrees. Or you might have been noticing that I could really just take the 2 answers that I had, the 35 degrees for BOC and the 90 degrees for angle COD, because angle BOD, or the measure of angle BOD, is really equal to the measure of angle DOC plus the measure of angle COB. So if I go ahead and put in my 90 right here, plus my 35 that I had initially, that's another way that I can come up with the same answer that I had of 125 by adding those two. Okay? That's the basics of angles. Like I said, we're going to work with angles the rest of the year. Really important, especially that you know how to name them and that you understand visually what we're talking about when we're looking at more complicated pictures with more than one angle in them. Thanks for following along. I'd like you at the bottom of your paper, your notes page, to write your name backwards. That will get you credit for these notes. Write your name backwards, starting with the end, going to the beginning. That's your challenge. Then you're done.